5 Shocking reasons why you should never remarry. After 70. My friend, let me speak to you straight from the heart. At 70 years old, life feels different than it once did. The pace slows, the noise quiets, and you begin to see things with a clarity that only comes from decades of walking this earth. You no longer crave the rush of youthful romance or the drama of proving yourself to others. Instead, you value something far greater, peace. And yet, many people at this stage of life still dream of marrying again, thinking it will fill some empty space or bring back a spark of what was lost. But I must tell you, remarriage after 70 often brings more burden than blessing, more chaos than comfort. When we were younger, love was fire. It was reckless and thrilling, and we chased it even when it burned us. But at this age, love is no longer about fireworks. It's about warmth. It's about a steady flame that keeps the soul at ease. And remarriage, despite its promises of companionship, can too easily reignite struggles that you've worked your whole life to leave behind. You've earned your freedom, your wisdom, your quiet mornings and slow evenings. Why would you trade that for the weight of new obligations, new arguments, and new entanglements? Think for a moment about the years you've already lived. You've raised children, buried friends, worked through hardships, maybe even stood at the bedside of someone you loved as their breath faded away. You know the cost of love and the price of loss. So ask yourself honestly, do you want to start another legal, emotional, and financial contract in the final act of your life's play? Or do you want to spend your precious days savoring the sweetness of freedom, giving your time to the people and passions that truly matter? I've seen too many elders blinded by loneliness, rushing into remarriage as if it were the only cure. But loneliness has never been healed by rushing. It is healed by learning to embrace yourself, by surrounding yourself with community, with friends, with faith, with the deep beauty of life itself. Marriage may bring company, but it also brings conditions. It binds your health, your wealth, your time, and your peace to another person's choices and struggles. At 70, that is a price you cannot afford to pay lightly. You are not the same person you were at 30, 40, or 50. Back then, your life was still being built. Now you are not building, you are savoring. You are harvesting the fruit of all those years of labor, mistakes, and lessons. Marriage at this age can uproot the garden you've so carefully tended, leaving you to manage storms instead of enjoying the calm. This is not to say love is closed to you. Far from it. Love is alive, perhaps more alive than ever, because it is free of the illusions of youth. But love after 70 does not need a contract. It does not need rings, signatures, or vows written in law. It needs presence, honesty, laughter, and the grace of two people who choose to walk together without binding each other's wings. That is why I want to share with you 5 shocking reasons why you should never remarry after 70. Not to rob you of hope, but to give you freedom. Not to discourage you, but to show you that the life ahead of you can be richer, calmer, and far more fulfilling without the weight of a marriage certificate. Because in this stage of life, your greatest treasures are peace, freedom, health, legacy, and companionship without chains. And those treasures are worth far more than any promise of remarriage could ever bring. So let us walk together through these truths, and by the end, I believe you will see your future with clearer eyes and with a heart that is no longer restless, but free. Part 1. Freedom becomes more precious than romance. At 70, freedom is no longer a luxury. It is the rare jewel you have earned after decades of living under the weight of responsibility. Think back on your life, the endless work shifts, the raising of children, the care for a spouse, the debts, the duties, the obligations. For years you were bound to others, by love, by duty, by necessity. Every decision you made, from the smallest detail of what to cook for dinner to the largest sacrifice of where to live or work, was influenced by the needs of those around you. Now in this season of life, you have finally been handed back the gift of freedom. You can choose when to wake up, what to eat, where to go, and whom to spend your time with. You can sit by the window with your coffee for as long as you like, take an afternoon nap without guilt, or even decide that today you will do nothing at all. This freedom is the crown of old age. Yet remarriage threatens to place chains upon it once again. Marriage, even a late one, comes with obligations. Suddenly, your free time becomes our time. Your schedule bends around another's needs. What was once simple, your meals, your daily habits, your quiet rituals, becomes a negotiation. And at 70, the last thing you need is to negotiate the rhythm of your days. You should not have to ask permission to enjoy the simplicity of your hard-earned freedom. I once knew a man, 73 years old, who remarried after the loss of his wife. At first, he felt alive again, like youth had returned to him. But slowly, the reality set in. His new wife had children who did not trust him. She had habits that clashed with his, expectations about travel and family gatherings, and suddenly, his quiet afternoons disappeared. He confessed to me, with tears in his eyes, that he felt more imprisoned than he ever had before. His freedom, the very thing he longed to enjoy, had been traded away in the hope of companionship. This is why freedom is more precious than romance. At this age, romance may sparkle briefly, but freedom sustains you. Romance may excite, but freedom restores. Romance may flatter, but freedom heals. And if you remarry after 70, you risk surrendering the very treasure that makes these years worth living. Part 2. Emotional turbulence outweighs peace. When you were young, perhaps you could handle the storms of passion, the arguments, the jealousy, the misunderstandings that came with love. Back then, you had energy for drama, patience for quarrels, and the resilience to mend a broken heart quickly. But at 70, your heart deserves calm waters, not raging seas. Peace, not passion, is the medicine of your soul. Remarriage, though it may promise companionship, often stirs up emotional turbulence you do not need. Think of the conflicts that can arise: disagreements about money, disputes about family traditions, resentment between children and stepchildren, even suspicion over motives. These storms are not rare, they are common, and they drain more than they give. I once sat with a woman of 78 who had remarried a widower. At first, the relationship seemed like a gift, but within a year, tension arose between her children and his. His family questioned her intentions, her children feared she would lose her inheritance, and every holiday became a battlefield of divided loyalties. She confessed that she often sat alone in her room and longed for the quiet life she had before. Peace had left her, and in its place came noise, suspicion, and endless explanations. At 70, peace is not just a preference, it is survival. Your body no longer recovers easily from stress. Your mind no longer thrives in constant conflict. Your spirit longs for serenity, for mornings without tension and nights without arguments. But remarriage can steal that from you, replacing stillness with storm. Ask yourself this: do you want your final years filled with drama or with dignity? Do you want to spend your energy defending your choices to others, or do you want to conserve it for the things that bring you true joy? Romance may look beautiful on the surface, but if it comes at the cost of peace, it is too expensive. After 70, your soul does not need sparks of passion that burn fast and fierce. It needs the steady warmth of calm companionship, friendships that are free of demand, love that does not require constant struggle. That is why emotional turbulence is one of the greatest hidden costs of remarriage. At this stage of life, peace is your birthright. Do not trade it away for fleeting romance. Part 3. Health becomes the silent battlefield. At 70, health becomes the quiet battlefield where every day is both a blessing and a challenge. Your knees ache, your back reminds you of the years of labor, and sometimes your memory slips like a cloud drifting across the sun. You move slower, you need more rest, and you know that your body no longer carries you with the same strength it once did. This is the natural rhythm of aging, and it is nothing to be ashamed of. But here is the truth. When you remarry at this stage of life, your health, already delicate, often becomes entangled in ways that drain you rather than lift you. Think of what marriage truly means at 70. It is not just sharing a bed or meals. It is sharing the weight of illness, doctor's visits, medications, and daily care. Instead of spending your precious years savoring your mornings, taking quiet walks, or reading under the sun, you may find yourself shuttling back and forth to hospitals, not for yourself, but for your spouse. What begins as companionship often turns into caretaking, and while love can make sacrifice noble, it also makes it heavy. I once visited an old friend who remarried in his early 70s. He was full of optimism at first, but within a few short years, his wife's health declined. Every day he became her nurse, helping her with medication, meals, mobility. His own health suffered as a result. He was too tired to tend to his hobbies, too worn down to enjoy time with his grandchildren. He told me quietly one afternoon, "I thought I'd found comfort, but what I've found is duty. I am not living, I am serving, and I'm not sure I have the strength." That is the danger. Remarriage ties you to another's health as much as your own. If your spouse becomes ill, the burden of care may fall on your shoulders. And if you become ill, you may feel the guilt of being a burden to someone who is also aging, who is also fragile. Instead of the freedom to heal at your own pace, you are tied to the weight of responsibility. Your health, my friend, is your most valuable asset at this age. Without it, freedom means nothing, peace cannot be enjoyed, and legacy cannot be built. Every ounce of your energy should be preserved for your well-being, not poured endlessly into a role you no longer have the strength to carry. At 70 and beyond, your body and spirit crave rest, not responsibility. This does not mean you cannot love or care for others, but it means you must protect yourself from obligations that drain the very life you are trying to preserve. Love should not cost you your health, and remarriage too often demands exactly that. Part 4. Financial entanglements can rob your legacy. Now let us speak of money, not because it is everything, but because it affects nearly everything in these years of life. After 70, your financial house should be in order. You've worked a lifetime, saved what you could, perhaps built a home, and set aside something for your children or grandchildren. That legacy, however small or large, is your gift to the future. But remarriage has a way of tangling what should be simple. When you marry, finances merge, not only your income and expenses, but your debts, your assets, your inheritances, and your obligations. At this stage of life, that merger is rarely smooth. It is often complicated by family dynamics, property laws, and the suspicions of children on both sides. What looks like a new chapter of love can easily become a battlefield over money. I remember a widow who remarried at 75. She was kind, generous, and deeply in love with her new husband. But after a few years, he passed away unexpectedly. His children, who never fully accepted her, challenged her rights to property and inheritance. Courts became involved, lawyers drained money, and her own children were left heartbroken watching her dignity stripped away. She had remarried for companionship, but in the end, she lost her peace, her wealth, and her legacy. This is not rare. It happens often. Marriage legally ties your assets to another person, and at this stage, such ties can undo everything you've worked for. Even if love is true, the law is not kind to blended families when inheritance comes into play. The children of your new spouse may resent you. Your own children may feel betrayed. What was meant to be a union of hearts becomes a fracture of family bonds. At 70, money is not about greed. It is about stability. It is about protecting yourself from vulnerability, ensuring that your needs are met without fear, and leaving behind the legacy you've earned for the people who carry your blood and your story. Remarriage, however, can scatter that legacy into confusion, disputes, and division. So let me ask you this. Is a late marriage worth risking your family's inheritance? Is it worth undoing decades of effort just for the sake of a companionship you could have without contracts? When you look at it with clear eyes, the answer is simple. Your peace, your stability, and your legacy are worth more than the paper of remarriage. Part 5. Companionship doesn't require marriage. Let us face a truth that many overlook. Companionship and marriage are not the same thing. At 70 and beyond, the need of the heart is not fiery passion, but warm companionship. It is not the restless hunger of youth, but the gentle comfort of knowing you are not alone in this world. Yet somewhere along the way, society convinced us that companionship must be sealed with a ring, a certificate, and vows written into law. That belief, my friend, is not only unnecessary, it is dangerous at this stage of life. You do not need a marriage contract to laugh with someone over morning coffee. You do not need legal paperwork to walk hand in hand through the park, to share a meal, or to spend a quiet evening watching the sunset. You do not need remarriage to tell someone you care for them, or to feel cared for in return. Companionship can come from friendship, community, faith groups, neighbors, even your own family. It can be chosen freely, nurtured daily, and enjoyed fully without the chains of legal entanglement. I knew an elderly woman who once told me, "At this age, I don't want a husband. I want a friend who will sit with me in silence and still make me feel seen." She never remarried, but she had a circle of friends who visited her often, children who loved her deeply, and neighbors who treated her like family. She was never lonely, and she was never bound by the struggles remarriage might have brought. Her life was full, not because of a contract, but because of connection. That is the wisdom here. Companionship is free, but marriage is costly. At 70, your soul hungers for presence, not possession, for laughter, not litigation. Why trade the simple beauty of companionship for the heavy yoke of marriage? You are free to love, free to bond, free to build meaningful relationships without sacrificing your peace, your freedom, your health, or your legacy. This, my friend, is the true secret of elderhood. You can have love without chains. You can have warmth without vows. You can have companionship without contracts. And in that freedom lies the purest form of joy. Conclusion. Now that we have walked through these truths together, let us look at the whole picture. Remarriage after 70 is not what it seems. Beneath the promise of companionship lie hidden costs. Costs that can rob you of the very treasures you have spent a lifetime earning. Your freedom, the jewel of your later years, should not be surrendered for romance that fades. Your peace, more precious than passion, should not be disturbed by family conflicts and emotional storms. Your health, already delicate, should not be weighed down by responsibilities that drain your strength. Your finances, the foundation of your stability and legacy, should not be tangled in disputes that divide families and undo decades of effort. And above all, your need for companionship can be fulfilled in ways that do not demand the sacrifices remarriage requires. At 70 and beyond, life is not about proving love through contracts. It is about savoring the beauty of every sunrise, cherishing the laughter of grandchildren, finding joy in friendships, and embracing the stillness that your younger self never had time to enjoy. These years are the harvest years, the time to gather the fruit of your wisdom, not to plant yourself once again in the soil of obligations. So, if you find yourself tempted by the idea of remarriage, pause. Ask yourself, will this bring me peace, or will it bring me chains? Will this add to my life, or will it weigh it down? Will it honor the years I have lived, or rob me of the years I have left? The shocking truth, my friend, is that you do not need remarriage to be whole. You do not need a ring to be loved. You do not need a contract to be cherished. What you need is freedom, peace, health, legacy, and the kind of companionship that asks for nothing more than your presence. Embrace this stage of life with dignity. Celebrate the liberty you have earned. Let your days be filled not with drama, but with delight, not with burdens, but with blessings. For the greatest joy after 70 is not found in remarrying, but in finally living free, clear, and at peace with yourself.